The following Earth Angel Media presentation is brought to you commercial-free as a gratuity from the sponsor-producer named after the show. Please consider their message. Find other high-value shows listed at earthangelproject.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Soul Decodes. Join us as we wander off the path to find the ideas that fascinate. We talk about spirituality, the mind, the ego, wellness, and hidden history with tips, travels, and tales. Charms for a better life.
Well, Sarah, welcome back to Phillips Island.
Thank you. I feel like I've never left.
I know. It feels like it was just moments ago.
It's funny that, isn't it?
So, but thank you. Thank you for being back
more
here.
than welcome.
I always look forward to a
happy
visit.
To be
that
here.
first one was very delightful.
Yeah.
And I was so excited because after we finished the podcast, I actually plugged the recording in. And it actually recorded.
Wouldn't that have been awful if it had been nothing, like a 45-minute of blank?
But it wouldn't be the first time that
happened
happened.
to me when I was reading, I read my novel out and I recorded about 45 minutes of one very, very complicated chapter because there's a lot of dialogue and I wasn't recording and it was like, that's never going to happen to me.
So I had something similar. This is years ago. I had one of my pilot friends. He's an F-16 pilot, very established pilot. He currently still flies for JetBlue, which is where I most recently flew as a captain for JetBlue. And we were on an overnight together somewhere in Florida. And all the pilots have different nicknames. Like each of us had call signs.
Right.
And it's kind of like I don't know, it's a pilot thing. I don't know.
Kind of like Goose and Maverick and Top Gun, that
same
type of thing.
But what people don't know is that you don't get to pick your own call sign. Like,
You don't? Who designates that?
Usually it's based on something you did, and almost always the most embarrassing thing.
God.
It's almost always the most embarrassing thing you did. So my friend, I'm going to actually have him on my other podcast. My other podcast is Studio 17. And Studio 17, I interview people that have amazing stories or novel. They're game changers. They're business innovators. They're entrepreneurs and, problem solvers. So it's a completely different podcast than this. But I was sitting there with my friend Pete. Well, his call sign is Stinky.
Oh, I can imagine. Oh, no.
You'll have to listen to the podcast because I told him, I said, I want to redo that interview because it was an epic interview.
And did you get to the reasons why he was called Stinky?
Yes, but I'm not going to say.
No, don't. No, I have to listen.
That's going to be on the internet. That's going to be. So some things are better left. Let him tell the story. But it was precious. I was laughing so hard. So
my imagination has already gone wild.
Well, let me just tell you a quick. Look, here's a quick story for you. I mean, here we are. We're minutes into the podcast and we haven't even covered our first topic.
I know.
But this is what girlfriends do, right?
Yes.
So I was in a job. It was out of Toledo, and I was a check airman for a company called Flight Safety. And Flight Safety does training and check rides for corporate pilots and private pilots. And so I was a check airman, and one of the other instructors, we had a group of instructors, and when there's a group of you and there's like 8 of you that are always doing the same things and you're teaching and you're doing check rides and all this stuff, you get to know each other pretty well. So even though they're not military, I gave everyone call signs. I assigned them. My name was Dealer.
Dealer?
But there's reasons for it. I'm not going to talk about it.
Are you dealing cars or cocaine?
Well, I won't even go there. But,
Dealer. Oh, that's interesting.
But
do people then ask? People say, well, how come you're called Dealer?
Well, they do, but it's none of their business.
No, is that what you're saying?
It's none of your business.
If I needed you to know.
It's none of your business. I'll cuss before I tell you. but it's interesting because one of the things I did was I dealt out names, and you. There's a science to it. There's this thing. And what you do is you observe people. Like there was a girl that was one of the instructors, and she, during the training, it was after hours, and this is before GPS, before internet. Like you have to say, okay, jump in the car, drive 5 minutes down this highway, make a left at the second light. You know, the way we used to do it, right? And back when everything is in black and white.
Yeah.
but we were supposed to meet after hours. And all of the instructors were going to get together for dinner, and she gave instructions. They were the worst instructions ever. Like we ended up not even getting together for dinner. It's like we couldn't find each other. Like they were like the worst instructions ever. So what did I name her? OnStar. So, and there's another.
I like the satire in that.
And then there's another guy. Now, get this. This guy he was maybe like 5 foot. I'm going to say about 5'8", like not super stature, but not short. But he wore those round glasses with the wire frame, like almost like Ben Franklin glasses. Yes. And he was a former air traffic controller, and now he's a pilot. So there's all that. Well, being a former air traffic controller and with his stature, if I got to wait till you're not drinking. She's drinking right now, but she's going to spray this.
I'm not drinking. I'm drinking water, not gin. I need a gin.
But I don't want you to spray my microphone.
I'll cover my mouth.
I don't want you to spit it. But so think of MASH.
MASH is the TV show?
The TV show.
Yes, but you'll have to remember, I didn't grow up watching that because I grew up in England, so that's a very elusive concept. Okay,
well, there's this one of the characters on MASH is a guy named Radar. Did you know that?
No.
Oh, this won't even be funny then.
Well, okay. Conceptually it might be.
Okay. So there's this guy named Radar. You have to watch at least one episode now so you can find out who Radar was. So anyway, I named him Radar. And every one of the instructors thought it was perfect because he was a former air traffic controller. He looked like Radar. It was like perfect. Well, I got called into the boss's boss office, and he's like, enough of the names.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? And this guy's his real name was Greg.
What a humorless environment.
Well, I know, but still, it's their names, and names are important, right? But call signs are important too.
It's fun though, isn't it?
It's like so. And call signs are so important because, like, I can see somebody, like, I haven't seen my friend, I have some pilot friends from Detroit. They were in the Guard. Cujo, Knocker and Cujo, two of my best friends, right? You don't even have to know their real name. Like, you just know it's Knocker and Cujo. Mm-hmm. I don't even know. I don't remember the name, right? You don't have to remember it. Well, so the names are important, especially like...
So they called you in and they were angry with you.
So Greg was there, and he had my boss and his boss there, and they were hands on hips and admonishing me like I was a 5-year-old. And they're like, enough of the call signs. I'm like, wait a minute. What? I mean, these are nicknames. It's fun. It's like all this stuff. And they're like, well, but, Greg doesn't want a call sign. I'm like, well, that's the fun of it. Like, it's kind of like camaraderie. It's esprit de corps.
So they didn't understand your intention then, did they?
It was totally a loving kind, like it's fun, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, if he had to have a call sign, what could it be? They're like, no call signs. I said, well, Greg, what do you want us to call you then? He said, just Greg. I'm like, okay. So you heard him say it. Can I call him just Greg? And they're like, that's what he said. And I'm like, okay, great. You're just Greg.
JG.
So we just called him just Greg.
And he was okay with just Greg?
Well, no, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
But he agreed to it. So we just...
he didn't have much choice.
So we went from Radar to just Greg, but at least he had a name. But it even made it more funny because... Yeah. But I'm in a different place now. Like, I wouldn't push that issue.
Yes.
Because...
Well, you're being very playful.
I was being playful, but some people don't receive it that way.
Yes.
And so...
Yeah. Well, I think if you're insecure, you probably wouldn't, and that's not your problem, is it?
Yeah.
So.
But
I mean, you should be able to have a... What would my call sign be?
Oh, I'm going to think of one.
Okay, think about it. Let me know on the next podcast. I'll think about it too.
You can't force it.
Oh, no, I said, no, we'll know on the next podcast.
Oh, no.
I'll know. It's not in my mind what your call sign would be, but it'll come to me when I'm driving.
So you're going to give me a call?
Yeah, I think we should give each other.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that'll be another one.
If I don't like mine, you don't have permission to use it ever.
Well, that makes it more fun because I'm going to use it. So anyway, so let's talk about this podcast. First of all, how did you feel about last week's podcast?
I loved it.
Oh.
I felt I enjoyed it, and that's really, really important to me. I wouldn't want to slog my way through anything. Right?
I can't imagine you slogging your way through anything.
So that was great. It was funny. It was energetic. We went all over the place. We can recapture themes that we glossed over, and it's organic, and it's just us hanging out. And
it's
I really
pretty raw.
like that.
It's very raw, isn't it? So, what do you think we could do? Could do better? Or do you think it's like we're
Nothing.
on track? I like it. I'm the same. And maybe we'll get some feedback from some of the listeners.
Well, I think I haven't heard it nor have you, so I'd like to listen to this and review it. We've only heard ourselves. That might give me a better angle to think of what we could improve on, and then we can do that as of this moment. I thought it was delightful, and I hope the listeners can just track with us and go in and out of all our craziness. But we're talking about very important themes as well. That's what we're weaving in.
I want this to be fun. So there's this balance that we want to meet. We want to do the soul decodes, which I think is really important because ultimately we're on a journey. And
An eternal journey. This never ends.
It's so awesome. It's so fun. I can't wait. So there's that, but also I want to give pragmatic, practical things that people can do. Yeah. How do we actually apply this stuff? It's not just some esoteric, some concept. It's not conceptual. It's actually, how do we actually apply these things, right?
Yes.
How did you do it? How did I do it? Yeah. And then just have fun. I love laughter. My hope is that when people listen to this, that they fall in love with you the way I have. I hope they can engage us and just be part of our family.
Or they could just think we're the most boring bitches on the planet and never want to listen again.
I know.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
You know what? We're going to find out within a few episodes if it works or not. But how would you like today to go? This is your broadcast.
Well, I think,
how would you like it to go?
When we left off the last podcast, you had posed a question that we ask each other 3 things.
Okay.
So I could ask you something, and I could preface it with my experience. So my question to you would be, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you in terms of being in a dangerous situation? So real quick, I can just tell you about mine. I was over the Everglades and I was practicing a power-on stool. I hadn't got my private pilot's license at that point. And I went into a power-on stool, and I was about 4,000 feet, and I had to get out of the power-on stool, which was, I think, opposite aileron, and then just put the nose down. But I decided that I wanted to take it into a spin and recover from the spin.
At 4,000 feet?
Yes.
Nice.
So I took it into a spin, and I knew how to get out of it, but we weren't told to do that. We weren't allowed to go into a spin, and I got myself into a spin, and I had to apply the techniques to get out of it. But there was maybe a couple of seconds, 3-second lapse where I thought, fuck, Sarah, you better have got this right, because if you haven't got this right, you are dead. You will just go into the spin and not recover. And I did, and I came out of it and we're all good. But that was the closest I'd come to being in a dangerous situation, and I only had myself to get myself out of it. So, and there was 2 seconds of absolute, well, not fear, trepidation.
Okay, so I'm all sweating now. So...
And I never did that again. That was like, okay, you got this, Sarah.
It's kind of self-critiquing, isn't it? So, gosh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And this is with you. Were you solo or?
I was solo.
You're solo.
Over the Everglades. I had about 40 hours, and I was just practicing my maneuvers. And my check ride was the following week. God. And that was rough.
That's pretty sporty.
It was sporty. It was idiotic.
I call it self-critiquing.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
So, your question is loaded because the truth is, I honestly...
Well, the most dangerous situation. Where did you face the most danger?
I can honestly say I don't even know how I'm still alive because I've had so many of those instances.
Goodness me.
So many of them. Danger comes in different forms. And I think that probably the scariest thing.
But it's the situation that you've put yourself in, because no one put me in that situation. Here I am in a 152. This is you are accountable for this danger that you've put yourself in.
So there's been so many times where I've looked backwards at something I did. Well, like drive a motorcycle way too fast,
right. Yeah,
like way too fast. All right. When you're doing it, you're not thinking, because you're just a kid, right? You're just.
Oh, so you were young.
Oh, I was very young.
Yeah, I was 25. Okay.
No, I was younger than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're a kid, you don't think about that. But when I look backwards, I had no idea how much danger I was in. So I get more upset about the danger I was in. Like the danger, I could have been wiped out in a heartbeat. But part of that was me, because
could have wiped someone else out if you'd have skidded round a bend on some gravel or something.
Yeah, and there's that. But let's go back into this a little bit more, because like, I'll give you the short answer about the most dangerous thing, and that is when you're in a T-38, which is the Air Force's supersonic trainer. It's
right.
the Thunderbirds used to fly the T-38 before they had the F-16s.
Right.
So I was an instructor pilot in there. So you'd have a student in your plane, and then you'd have a solo student in the airplane right next to you.
Oh,
and you'd be flying
goodness.
formation. So
Gosh.
the most scary experiences are when you have that, because you have two students that are flying against each other. I say against, they're in the same formation.
In unison.
In unison, but sometimes it feels like they're against each other. But
Well, they're learning.
But and especially if the student not in your flight, like not in your cockpit, but it's in your flight.
Yeah.
So there should be the solo student pilot who's on your wing is arrogant.
Oh.
That was probably the scariest I've ever had.
Wow.
Because they're not coachable.
Yeah.
They're
reachable.
They're in. And this guy came from a guard unit, so he already knew that he was going to graduate and go to an A-10, fly an A-10 Warthog, which is the tank killer. He already knew, so he was all about himself, and he was flat out dangerous. So
Complacent. Well, if you think you're that good and you're arrogant, you are going to be complacent.
Well, there's an adage, like pilots have all these sayings, right?
But the old and bold.
Yes, you know it. Tell it, say it.
Okay, there's no such thing as an old and bold pilot.
Yeah, there's old pilots.
Yeah, and
there's
bold pilots.
There are no old, bold pilots, right? But that's the case. So I basically told him to go to route, which means get off my wing and just take 50 feet to the side of me, just because
Right.
when we're in formation, we're 3 feet apart.
Oh, wow, close.
Oh, yeah, it's 3 foot wingtip
Holy
clearance.
moly.
So I shook him off. I've sent him to
And did he listen
route.
to your command?
He had to.
Yeah.
I said, the ride's over, we're going back. So I terminated early. I came. It's called a...
And then you have to take him into a debrief after that?
Oh, totally. I took him to the flight commander because he wasn't compliant. He was not doing what he was supposed to do.
He wasn't obeying an instruction.
No.
It's insubordination.
Exactly. So I had to fail him. I don't like to fail student pilots, but at some point when you're not... See, it's not all about skills. It's not all about skills. It's about what we call airmanship. Airmanship is simply, are you thinking like a pilot? Are you thinking like an aviator? Are you thinking like a captain? Because anybody can fly an airplane, truly, but can you think so you can get all of your maneuvers correct? You can be perfect execution. But if you make boneheaded decisions, you fail.
Yes.
So I failed him for airmanship.
Yeah.
And
What was his? What was the decision that he made where you understood that he's arrogant and unreachable? Was it a breach of a direct order?
Well, he did a. There's in formation. What you do is you send people. You do rejoins. You have to practice. So what you do is you shake the stick, and they go out away from you. And then they rejoin on you. And there's straight ahead rejoins, there's turning rejoins, and things like that. One of the cardinal rules is that if you lose sight of your wingman or the other airplane, if you lose sight of them, there are procedures you have to go through.
Right.
Because if you don't know where that other airplane is, you can end up smacking them pretty easily.
Quite.
Well, what happened was we were doing a turning rejoin. He was on the inside of the turn, so his belly was up to me. So I'm looking up at the belly of his airplane, and I know he couldn't see me because he was too high. Normally, in a T-38, you'd be able to look at the other airplane just over the canopy rail, and you'd be able to see the other airplane. But he was way too high, and I know he couldn't see me. So I told him to break out. And break out means that discontinue the rejoin.
Get away from the plane.
And the breakout means that he goes to one altitude, I go to the other, and then we can rejoin after we're in sight. Because I saw him, but I knew he couldn't see me. He didn't break out. He continued to close on me, and my student was flying in the airplane I'm flying. So the closure continued, and I told my student pilot, said, I have the aircraft.
Good.
And I literally pulled my airplane up.
Good for you.
The student flew right underneath me.
Good for you.
So I just let him pass under me.
You had to take control. Because he's not listening and he's not doing the right thing. He's not following protocol.
My student wasn't strong enough to comprehend that we're about ready to get smacked by the other airplane. But things happen very quickly when you're at 350, 400 miles an hour. So that was probably the scariest life situation I've had. But
that's a very, very interesting one. Can I just ask you, so when you talked to him in the debrief, was he irritated with you or himself? Did he get what was going on?
Oh, yeah.
Or did he try and defend himself?
No, he parked his airplane and he was storming off like a spoiled brat.
Oh, was he?
But that didn't last long because my flight commander was... He was very... He understood what was going on there because this was evidently not the first time this child had behaved that way. And the flight commander explained to him, yes, you're going back to an A-10. Yes, you will be flying a cool airplane only after you graduate. And if you don't graduate, you're not going to that airplane. So keep your priorities. Learn what you need to learn. So I thought the flight commander did an amazing job settling that boy. And
did he settle? Did he turn out to be a good pilot?
Well, he graduated.
Right.
I don't know if he's a good pilot. I don't even know if he's still alive.
Yeah. Wow.
But I did what I could do.
Yeah.
So that's a really good question.
But you have, I mean, in that case, you have 3 lives. You have multi-million dollars worth of equipment. You've got to think quickly, get down. And so basically that experience for you was based on the arrogance and complacency of someone else. And he wasn't in the right formation. He should have been able to see you. And he couldn't.
Well, he lost sight. He should have broken out by himself. He didn't.
Yeah.
I directed him to break out.
And he didn't.
He didn't.
And then you had to break out.
So I had to remedy it. So
interesting.
So it was airmanship, but it was also the rejoin. He failed the rejoin because he lost sight.
Yeah.
It's not about losing sight. It's about not doing the procedures.
Yes.
So very good question. Wow. I didn't expect we'd be talking about aviation today.
Well, it might come into it now and again. That's where I met my husband. I mean, he was doing his instrument rating.
Okay.
And that's where we met. So that's kind of unites us in a little way. It's kind of fun.
So now it's my turn to ask a question.
No.
All
now I have to have a sip of my gin. It's not really, it's water.
It's clear fluid. So last time we had our first episode, we talked briefly about belief systems. We talked about beliefs, and I have a perspective on what beliefs are. So there's like beliefs and there's truths. And so in your mind, how do you personally discriminate between what is a belief and what is truth? Does truth actually exist?
Well,
like what is truth?
Yes, so truth would be what is beautiful, what is as good as beautiful, and what is the best outcome. So truth has to be beauty. It has to be coherent and beautiful for it to even stand as the truth. If it isn't beautiful and it's not coherent, it's not likely to be the truth, because whoever or what created this reality is a beautiful, benevolent, lovely being, whatever this God structure looks like. So for me, truth is always going to be associated with with beauty and with love and something workable, something reasonable. That's how I ascertain what I believe truth to be. So when I look at the human condition, the heaven on earth is the truth for me because it's beautiful, and human flourishing is for everyone. No one's going to hell, and everyone graduates this human cycle. So truth to me is always contingent upon a beautiful, loving, happy outcome. That's how I determine cosmic truth.
That is so beautiful. That actually very much complies with or conforms with my view, because one of the things I struggled with as a child was, I mentioned, there's this Jesus figure, and I thought, how can a father, like the story is that there's this father who slaughtered his son, who sacrificed his son to relieve us of our sins, of our responsibility.
Terrible. A scapegoat is an appalling doctrine.
That story never resonated with me. I'm not saying it's not true. So if there's Christians out there, I don't want the hate mail. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying,
send in mail if you'd like to talk about it.
But I'd love to hear about it. But the story never made sense to me because...
No, how could it?
Well, here's the question. Again, I'm not about badgering one religion or another.
No.
I'm just trying to make sense of things. So the reason is within the construct of truth versus belief. That's my question. How do you discern between a truth and a belief?
Well, they're not interchangeable terms for me. Truth is one principle. A belief system is what we're all doing. We're all forming a belief system about the nature of this reality, whether we realize it or not. Mm-hmm. Who am I? What am I doing here? Where am I going? Where did I come from? How does the doing happen, and what are the mechanisms that keep this whole thing in place? Mm-hmm. And I have a belief system which I have plucked from all religions because I've always tried to get to truth, and truth is love, truth is beauty, truth is a good outcome for everyone. But a belief system could be completely erroneous. There could be no truth in someone's belief system because the belief system itself is a very poor quality. So a belief system is not an interchangeable term with truth.
Excellent. So this is very much in line with what I was sharing, because when I was a child and looking at the Jesus figure and listening to the Jesus story as an example, my idea was I couldn't comprehend how a parent could do that to a child. And I also thought, well, wait a minute, he's being sacrificed. To whom is he being sacrificed?
Yes, and why?
Yeah. I never understood
now, you and I both
still don't.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Because you can't fathom it. Because to me, it's not fathomable because it's a piece of mythology. It's not the truth. Now, you and I both have kids. We wouldn't ask one of our oldest child, we wouldn't punish our oldest child for the actions of a middle child or a younger child, because we would know it would be totally unreasonable and totally unloving to do that, not just in any way. So you and I would never do that just as parents. We'd never punish a child for the other one's mistakes. We'd never laud another child. And I can just see it in motherhood. Now, if I wasn't going to do that to my child, and I wouldn't, why would God do that to us? Why would he pick out a scapegoat and say this person is going to be brutalized and scourged and damaged and tortured because you all fuck things up? No one's fucked anything up because there's actually nothing wrong with this planet. We can get to that. But we would never put that as a human being on another human being. And the fact that we think God is capable of doing that would not be a truthful version of God as far as I'm concerned, because it's just not loving.
Fair. So we're fine-tuning this idea of what is a truth and what is a belief. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned over my lifetime is that when I observe the world around me, that there's certain things that reinforce certain things I believe, and there's things that pop holes in or punch holes in some of my beliefs. So as a child, I wanted to believe the narratives that I was growing up. There's all sorts of narratives. There's also, when I look at history, there's all of this history that were put forth into us. The Pilgrims, they were friends with the Indians, right? They loved each other and shared technologies. Okay, that's great. And they ate turkey and made soft dip ice cream. Right? I mean, it's like,
now you're being
really?
facetious.
It's like, really? So there's these beliefs, but then I liken the truth to being us. Like, there's only one truth. Whatever the truth is, like, none of us know all of it. So, like, if I were to invite you and Tony over for dinner with us, and afterwards we're going to make a 1,000-piece puzzle, right? Get some good lighting, a little sip of wine or whatever you want, and then we're going to make a puzzle. You're going to have some pieces, and you're going to synthesize or try to piece together, like, what is this? Is this a barn? Is this a car? Is this a tractor? What is this, right? And I'm going to look and say, is this a dog or a deer? Or is this like some hay?
Or a Barbie doll?
A Barbie doll. And what is this? And we're going to collaborate. Like, you're going to say, oh my goodness, it looks like these pieces belong here. So why don't you take these? And I'll say, oh, you're working on the barn. I'll give you these pieces, and we're going to collaborate. And you're going to share little bits of information about what you see.
Believe the truth to be.
What you believe the truth to be, which is ultimately what this big puzzle is.
Well, what you've got to bring into that, if you've got belief and truth, you've got to bring what faith is. So we have to try and understand what faith means. To me, I understood that in order to arrive at the correct belief system that was going to allow me to create the reality that I'm living in, I had to have faith in the magnificence of God. That whatever this God is so impeccable, so awesome, and that there's some amazing plan for everyone on planet Earth. So that was the trajectory that and faith was an airtight faith was what I needed in order to establish a belief system so I could arrive at truth. So faith is a critical factor. You've got to be really, really careful what God type you believe in.
I like what you said, but I'm a little bit lost because so you're suggesting that faith is a precondition?
Yes, it should be.
What about people who don't have faith? They don't believe in God. They don't they still have beliefs.
Yes, so they have beliefs. So my brother is an atheist.
Okay, tell me about atheism.
An atheist, yes.
Okay, because I have family members that are atheists.
Me too.
And I love them like crazy.
Yeah.
And they're some of the most beautiful, beautiful people in the world.
Yes.
So I know this is I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with the questioning, like there's no structure to this.
No, let's just roll with it.
But I'm trying to ask questions that like the world, people in the world might ask.
Yes.
And so what about atheists? I don't want the answer from like a religious answer. Like I have no interest in religion. Religion's good for wars. That's about it.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
But in terms of like, you mentioned that people need to have faith and they have to have a belief system and things like that. Where does this leave the atheists?
Out winging it, in the dark, in the cold, not a belief system because my brother's an atheist.
Tell me about that.
And so he doesn't believe, well, we said this at the beginning, you opened with this, it's very difficult when you see, I don't know whether we recorded this or was pre-recording, it's very difficult to reconcile the existence of God with a world that suffers so much. So my brother's like that. He cannot believe the suffering and he cannot understand that a God would create it. So therefore, there is no God. So he just believes his life is about being the best version of himself. He believes that when he dies, his consciousness will be extinct, that it's not going to go on anywhere. If it does, he'll work that out when he gets to it. My husband, he's not quite as a hardcore atheist as my brother, but he doesn't necessarily believe in a bigger picture. And he's not too worried about that because what he wants to do is be of service in this life, take care of his family and be a good, righteous person without any idea of wanting to talk about the transcendent, about God, about what reality looks like. I, for some reason, am wired differently, and I'll talk about this awakening I had when I was 33, but I think some people are born pre-wired not to consider God. A favourite philosopher of mine and a neuroscientist is Sam Harris. He understands the structures of the mind and is quite spiritual in his practices, but he doesn't need to understand the bigger reality and doesn't necessarily believe there is one. Now, he's more agnostic than atheist. And I think some people are necessarily wired like that. And a lot of people aren't. If you look at humanity over a couple of 100,000 years, most of us are pre-wired to think there is a bigger picture, and we're all trying to find what that is. Most of humanity has lived and died trying to find answers to God. Very few people are atheists, and if they are, it's because they can't reconcile suffering with the existence of a God. And I totally get that, because this is a brutal, brutal planet. I mean, there's people dying and being tortured right now as we speak, and I totally get why people wouldn't believe in a God. It's a very easy thing to incorporate into your belief system. And that is a belief system in itself. The non-existence of God is part of a belief system.
So this is a good segue to my next question I was going to ask you.
Oh my God, I'm nervous again.
Which is, okay, so is there a devil and demons and dark forces that influence us? Yes or no?
It's not as easy as that. So, light has no meaning without dark. In has no meaning without out. Up has no meaning without down. Bravery has no meaning without cowardice. So we live in a world of polarity. So yes, there is darkness, because we wouldn't know light if there wasn't. So we live with the contrast.
But my question was specifically
demons, ugly little trolls coming out the walls.
For real, like there's the Flip Wilson. Remember, the devil made me do it. Do you remember that?
No, I believe that the devil. I think it's a very, very. How could I put this politely? The devil is basically saying, well, the devil made me do it. That's what you were just referencing. Right. There's no accountability in that. And you're not likely to work on yourself if you believe that a devil or a dark force is possessing you. So it's a very, very disempowering, limited belief system. So I don't believe in the devil, but I do believe that there's a necessity on this planet for darkness so we can seek the light.
Okay. This is a very relevant question, because I actually have family members that are very, very hardcore Christian, salvation, the devil, demons, the whole thing.
Oh, scary.
And I was recently asked the question whether or not I believed that there was a devil. So I asked you the question because
what was your answer?
Well, I said that the answer is not relevant. Oh. And the reason I said it's not relevant is I do, when you war game this out, I say war games, when you look at all the potentialities and you evaluate them and you just kind of think it through logically, it's not relevant because of how we live our lives. So my answer to this person, and it was a private conversation, so I don't want to disclose who it was, but was that whether or not there's a devil is not of any consequence to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, I believe that the idea of a devil is an archetype that is, because we are humans, because we the peoples. I don't like human, I like we the people. But because we're we the peoples, we want to express things, we want to animate things, we want to give things life that we don't understand, we don't comprehend.
Anthropomorphize things. Isn't that the term? We need to personify something.
That's the term you use. I don't even attempt that word.
I have to try better next time.
So, but here's an example. So we're in the studio. Let's just say there's no moon. It's nighttime. We walk up here. It's pitch black. Right. And we walk into this room and I say, Sarah, what do you see? And you say, I can't see anything. It's pitch black. So what do you see? I see darkness. Are you really seeing darkness? Can you really see darkness?
Well, you're seeing the absence of light.
You're seeing the absence of light. Same thing what is evil? Well, is it a thing, or is it the absence of love and goodness and kindness?
Yeah.
It's really...
So it doesn't have an independent existence. It only has an existence based on the fact that we live in a world of polarity and opposites.
Well, and again, but we again, the archetype of a devil is we're trying to bring something to life, that there's nothingness. Here's a better example. If I took a chamber and I sucked all the air out of it
So it's just a vacuum.
You'd call it a vacuum. And I'd say, well, what is this? And you'd say, I'd say, what's in there? And you'd say, it's a vacuum. Well, but there's nothing in there.
It's the absence of everything.
It's the absence of air.
Yeah.
So the conversation is like, we give it a name, we call it a vacuum, but it's nothingness. So whether it's light or a lack of light, whether it's love or a lack of love, or whether it's air or a lack of air, we tend to name things that don't exist.
Yes.
And we give them life even though there's nothing there.
Yes, we animated it with a false concept.
So the idea of like a polarity, like, and I'm familiar with, like, you make reference, I don't know if it's in one of your books or maybe it's a conversation we had, but these 7 spiritual laws and the law of as above, so below, and the polarity and things like that.
It's the Kabbalion.
The Kabbalion, yeah. And I'd like to talk about that sometime.
Yes,
but this idea of the dark and the light, that's the visual representation of it, but it's more an expression of the flow, the in and out, the flow of life. But I bring it up because I don't think that the way we live our lives it doesn't change whether there's a devil or there's not a devil. In other words, my capacity to love, to empathize, to give charitably, and you're like one of the biggest charitable givers I've ever met. You're so every instance I've ever you tip better than anybody I know. You give more than anybody I know. Like, you're such a beautiful giving heart. The way you are is not going to be influenced by whether there actually is a devil or there's not. You're going to be your best version of yourself, independent of whether or not there's a devil. I wouldn't
be able to be the best version of myself independently from there's a devil if I believe the devil to be real, because I've met Christians who really believe there's an evil force in this world, and it compromises their own power because they're scared. They're very scared that you've got this God and the devil fighting for supremacy, and that human beings are somehow pawns caught in this cosmic game.
So this plays very much into your one of your themes in your book. That there's this idea of this big God and this tiny little human. Tell me more about that. Because
so big God, little human, that's the monotheistic belief in reality. You've got this big God. He created this existence. There was some horrible calamity back in the Garden of Eden when Eve, she took a bite from an apple because God had said you can't eat from this, and she did, and this is the knowledge of good and evil. And I get that conceptually, and I can't get into that now because it's like the whole chapter in the Starside Prophecy.
We'll just do it next time.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Exactly.
But you've got this big God, little human, and it's actually more important to understand big God, big human. And you've got the God who's big and he's all knowing, all doing, and he can create a miracle or he doesn't. He can put favor on our life or he doesn't. And that human beings are somehow just winging it, running around, doing their best, but not understanding that they're all so big. So this big God, little human is a tragic concept. And it's one that in a lot of my writing is written to address. And then you've got this devil. So the devil is this, most Christians, I've known a lot of Christians, I have beautiful Christian friends, and we can talk about spirituality, but I find that they're living in fear a lot because they believe that some of the crappy things that are happening in their lives is a result of the devil intervening. He gets into your mind. That's terrible, disempowering position. It's your own thoughts that are doing this. This is you. This is not an intervening, hostile, negative force from Satan that God couldn't control because Satan's a former angel, right? So if you believe in the existence of the devil, you've also got to believe in the existence of the incompetency of a God that couldn't control him. So it was just a joke.
No, but I get what you're saying. Okay. We got probably time for 2 more questions.
Okay.
One from you, one from me.
All right, you go first.
Well, no, you go first.
Oh, okay.
I just asked you if there was a devil and we went in there. So
okay,
it's your turn.
So I'm in your studio
Okay.
and I'm looking at your beautiful paneling on the wall and I love it. So this is creative. It's beautiful. You've got these beautiful panels, beautiful fabric, and you created something that stops the sound bouncing around, and it's beautiful artwork.
Well, I listened to the sound from last week, and it actually did a good job.
Did it? So utilitarian?
There's a little bit of a carryover sound from the hard surfaces, but not bad for a studio.
So let me ask you. So you're creative. It's obvious that you're creative. Have you always been creative? Did you draw well as a kid? Could you mold things from pottery and?
Now you're talking about you're an artist. So
I didn't know that until I was older. Though I didn't know that when I was a kid.
Well, so
I was told that I wasn't creative by my mother, so I had no idea I was until I broke free from that conditioning.
Fascinating question. So the root question, you're observing the creativity in the studio, but
We should put some pictures up of this, by the way.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
But your root question is that of creativity. So the short answer on these particular sound panels is that I made them myself. The fabric is from whatever was being cleared out at the fabric store.
Right.
It was $1 a yard
Yeah.
or something, and there's a wooden trim that's just pine stapled together.
And did you miter it yourself?
I do all that myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And then the filler is an organic insulation.
Oh.
So it's actually an attic insulation that's organic, and I compressed it down, and it does a great job. I mean, I could probably have more of them, maybe put some on the ceiling, but I'm just not there.
But you created artwork out of them, because then you could have just done this in black fabric, right? But it's great. So creativity.
It wasn't creativity. It's because I was
because you achieved.
because I was
wanted to do
broke.
something simply.
It was broke, and when you look at those panels, let's be honest, those panels. If I were to get those, my brother Jeff's in Chicago. He's arguably the best audio engineer in the world, and I asked him, it's like, hey, can you price out these noise abatement panels for my studio? Sister, they're crazy expensive. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have my money.
You got creative out of the necessity of not wanting to pay through the nose, plus believing that you could just put this together yourself.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Because Robin and I have been married 29 years now. And when we met, I said, just so you know, I'm broke. I have no money. I have I was like, I had so many expenses from my recent divorce. I was so broke. Like we literally would look in our cars to piece together $5 so we could share a meal.
Wow.
I mean, that was so.
So creativity for you was based out of necessity.
It was necessity.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in that, but now, living on a farm, you're creative. Like if you need that, like my farmhand was out here several Wednesdays ago, and he's driving, and the wheel of the trailer fell off.
Oh.
And I'm like,
oh my God.
I whistled him down. I said,
did you see this happening?
Yeah, I saw it happen. And it's just a little trailer. It's like, 3 foot by 5 foot, heavy duty wheels and stuff. The wheel just departed, and he's dragging on the axle, and he doesn't even realize it. So I whistled him down, flagged him down. It's like, hey, stop. So I got the trailer, and it turned out the cotter pin came off the axle and it departed. Well, I don't have a cotter pin. So
you got a hair grip.
So I got a nail.
Oh, you did?
And
you bent it.
I put it in there and I bent it around it. I made my own cotter pin,
Great.
And he watched me do it. But you become very resourceful when you're on the farm.
Yeah.
Nothing goes to waste. We recycle every food scrap.
Very satisfying way of living.
It's very gratifying because you might have this little piece of lumber or this little rod or this piece of plastic, and you don't know what it's going to be used for, but you're going to use it for something.
Right.
And you become very, you're like a MacGyver. Oh. I don't know if you're familiar with MacGyver.
Yes, I know who he is.
You're almost like a MacGyver because you're like, oh my goodness, like to run out to the store, it's like, it's a 25-minute excursion to get from here to the closest store.
And you've got to shop, look what and you're just going to do it yourself.
Yeah, so it's just like, you know what? I need a piece of plastic. It's here somewhere.
That's great.
But so, anyway, how did we get there?
Well, I wanted to know, because it's very creative in here. Your panels are very creative. So creativity for you was out of necessity and self-reliance, because you know that you can do it yourself. So you've got a certain self-belief. Hey, I can do this. So there's a confidence that goes with that.
Yeah, so I think that the short answer on creativity is that it's necessity is the mother of invention, which is creativity. So, and I think that's a great saying because my whole life is about creatively solving problems. And I think that we humans are we the people
Are
so creative.
Yeah.
And
we're made in God's likeness, right? If that's true in the Bible, then we should be creative. And it's the creativity that's actually going to bring you alive.
And that's why I tell people, like my clients, my students, I call them my Padawan.
Padawan.
Do you know what Padawan is? Okay.
Sounds like a town in Utah.
So are you familiar with the Star Wars?
More Star Trek than Star Wars.
Okay, so Star Wars, there's the Jedi Knights, and there's Yoda, there's these Jedi Masters.
Right.
Well, if you're a student Jedi Knight, then you're a Padawan.
Padawan, so that's P-A-D-O-W-A-N?
P-A-D-A.
P-A-D-A.
W-A-N.
Padawan.
Padawan.
Wow.
And that just means that you're a ninja warrior knight in training.
Love it.
So I treat all of my students like Padawans.
I want to be a Padawan.
You are a Padawan. You are. I know a Padawan when I see one. I'm going
to get a bumper sticker. I am Padawan.
So, but one thing I teach them is that, I ask them the question, obviously from last episode,
yes.
I said, who are you and why are you here? And we have this discussion about their soul. And you're on a journey. We usually come to this agreement. I use the Socratic method, which means I'm going to ask them the questions, and I'm going to ask them questions based on their answers, and let them come to some conclusion of their own. I'm not going to tell them what to think or how to think, but I'm going to skillfully ask questions to let them come to some conclusions.
Yes.
So I'll ask the questions like, Sarah, do you believe you have a soul?
Yes, I do.
So, did your soul come to be part of you when you were conceived, or was it before you were conceived? And when you leave this earth space, does your soul stop, or is it going to go someplace?
Well, yes to all of that is part of my belief system. I have no idea, right, because none of us know. But part of my belief system is my soul lived prior to this existence in another body. And I think I've been animals, dinosaurs, fish, reptiles, going right back down to plankton. I believe the evolution of my soul has been animating in all sorts of different forms. No way of proving that, but that would be the essence of my belief system based on the fact that there's evolution, and it's a massive journey that we started on billions of years ago, and it's going into eternity.
So that would be your answer.
Yeah.
And everybody has a different answer. Some people just say, I have no idea.
No idea. Well, we don't.
And that's fair, because
I don't know either.
I
don't know anything. I'm just winging it here, trying to explore life and putting a belief system
Well, that's why we're decoding this.
That's right.
We're going to figure this out.
Decoders.
We're going to figure this out. So, but I ask those questions because I want them to comprehend that this is a journey for them.
Yeah.
See, in the Western world, we're all about like getting there. It's making that $1 million or getting that car or that home or that boat or whatever. It's, I'll be happy when I get there.
I know. God, it never happens.
So what I try to express is that, can you be happy on the journey? Can you get to a point like, okay, you want to be a millionaire? I'll show you how to do that. I've done it. You've done it. It's not hard to do.
No.
You have to get past yourself. But so being a millionaire is not going to make you happy.
No, but you don't know that on this side. You
don't.
No, you don't. You would have asked me that. I would have told you I need a lot of money and I need a really nice house, a flashy car, and I would have thought I'll be happy. And all that happened to me. Had a ton of money, had everything I wanted, and I wasn't happy. And that's when I started writing Is This the Best God Could Do? Because I prayed that night and I said, you better show me something that I'm not getting, because I am not happy. And I thought I had everything, and I thought money was part of that, and it isn't. But it does buy you freedom and opportunity. So I'm not knocking what money does, but no, money, any type of, and you've got to be happy in the journey. Once you're happy in the journey, you can become a millionaire. That's really easy to do if you get your thoughts right. All you need is to have faith, a vision, and you execute that just by upping your vibration in the moment. So I have sympathy for people who believe that money can make them happy. Now, if you were to ask a homeless man in Skid Row in Los Angeles, would money help you? He's going to say yes. He's going to absolutely stake his life on the fact that if he had money, he'd be happier. And he would to some degree, because he'd have more security, he'd have more freedom, he'd have food, he would have a lot of things. But happiness doesn't come from having millions. it doesn't.
So you've reinforced the journey. I think we both agree it's the journey. So this Soul Decode is about figuring out the journey.
Figuring out the journey.
So I don't want this to go too far because I don't want these, because I could talk to you for hours.
Oh, I know.
But so now I get to ask you one more question, then we'll close out.
Okay.
And then we'll pick up another one episode, okay? But let's take notes about what we do next episode. That'd be great. So my question to you is this. You have so many cool things happening. You've got a charitable foundation. You've got books you've written. You're starting this podcast with me. What would you, if I were your fairy godmother and I gave you a blank piece of paper and I said, whatever you put on this piece of paper is going to manifest this year.
Right.
What's at least one thing, but what are some of the things you'd put for yourself
on this blank piece of paper?
On this blank piece, what would you put on there that's going to manifest this year?
Okay. Everything.
Wow,
everything.
That's huge. That's a big number. That's
everything.
Big.
Yeah, because I've been working for nearly 25 years towards this. So it's not like this is just happening in this podcast. This is there's massive backstory behind this.
Okay, we're going to find out about that.
I
okay.
know.
It sounds like a good prelude for next episode.
Yeah, let's make that the first topic. What's everything mean?
What's everything? Okay, so let's close up. Any closing thoughts for our listeners this week?
Inspect your mind. Inspect your mind. Even if you can't stop what you're thinking, just try and become aware that you are thinking. That's a huge stepping stone towards happiness.
Excellent. And I'd say my closing thought is to enjoy the journey. Every one of us thinks that happiness is the next turn, the next corner, the next achievement. I'm going to just say that happiness is a decision.
Yes.
And we can cover that another time.
I know. Let's start with that. Happiness is a decision. We have to start with that. Okay,
cool. I'll see you next week.
Thank you
again.
Thank you so much.
Love you so much. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Soul Decodes, a feature presentation, airs every Friday on the Earth Angel Media Network. This episode of Soul Decodes is sponsored and produced by Pure. Optimize your life by taking your health to the next level. Listen now to learn how Pure will make your world better.
Pure is an American-based distribution system of online portals that give discounted access to clean, potent, natural, and ethically sourced healthy solutions for fat loss, muscle gain, immaculate skincare, immune system support, whole body cleanse, physiological balance, and performance support for athletes of all ages. Pure handpicks the best products and nutrients from world-class companies, always adding to their quickly growing wellness lineup that now includes Korean skincare, medical-grade nutraceuticals listed as pharmaceutical alternatives in a physician's desk reference, and healthy coffee that rivals the world's best, but for only about $1 per cup. Soul Decodes listeners looking for vitality, youth, beauty, and better health can get 25% off retail by visiting livepure.com/Sarah Tirri and signing up for free as a preferred customer. If you are a content creator, influencer, or home-based entrepreneur looking for worldwide cash flows from the emerging gig economy, Pure's state-of-the-industry brand partner affiliate program can bring you up to 7 different payment vectors as bonuses. As a content creator aligned with Live Pure and Earth Angel Media, you will enjoy massive co-marketing benefits, including a cutting-edge website that is personally branded to you or to your business. Sign up as a brand partner at livepure.com/Sarah Tirri, or drop us a note at connect@earthangelproject.com to get more information.